The 2026 WWE Royal Rumble takes place on Saturday in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The men's and women's Royal Rumble matches, two of the most anticipated matches of the entire year. But you've also got an undercard that includes two very intriguing matches for different reasons, as Drew McIntyre will defend the undisputed WWE Championship against Sami Zayn, and Gunther will try to end AJ Styles' career in a rematch from what was an excellent match on Raw a couple weeks ago. Let's jump into our predictions for these four matches. We do start with AJ Styles versus Gunther. We know all the rumors out there about Styles and when he may retire. We knew he was going to retire this year. I don't know if anyone thought it would happen this early because, well, you're thinking, okay, this is something where it's kind of like John Cena's retirement tour. They're going to let this thing play out for a while, get some dream matches in and all that stuff. Well, they've been pretty quick about that because he revisited his rivalry with Shinsuke Nakamura at Saturday night's main event, and they just decided to do AJ Styles versus CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship on this week's Raw. And so, everything seemingly is pointing towards this being it for AJ Styles because he's having the rematch with Gunther. He's already lost to him the time before, and even though we visibly saw Gunther tap out right there, the referee didn't see it. So he won the match, and now Styles putting his career on the line. This one does seem so obvious that I'm thinking, surely there has to be a swerve here, right? Surely there's something, because if you really think about the way this thing is played out, I know there was even kind of the debate out there, what was it, I think Nakamura put out something that may have spoiled that Styles told him he was retiring at the Rumble and all this other stuff. It's something where there are so many things pointing towards this being an absolute sort of layup that Gunther wins this match and AJ Styles retires, that I'm not sure I completely buy it. Because if you think about it, Styles doesn't even kind of get a clean finish in the match against Punk, which I know you're thinking, well, they don't want to beat AJ Styles, right? Well, then at least you're kind of looking at this wondering, well, shouldn't Styles maybe have another chance at getting back into the title picture since, he was kind of screwed out of that opportunity by Finn Balor, who's also, a longtime rival. There are a lot of things here that make me curious if WWE is trying to sort of pull one over on us, to point so many things in the direction of Gunther winning that Styles wins and maybe they do match number 3 at WrestleMania. I'm not exactly sure how you would go beyond having a career on the line stipulation unless you did it again, but there would have to be, again, something kind of unique about the third match if they were going to do it that way. So I guess I will pick Gunther here. I'm not happy about it because I do kind of wonder if this is just so predictable that maybe they're going to give us a swerve here. And, to me, a retirement in 2026, when AJ Styles first said it, I just don't know if anyone expected that to be at the end of January. So knowing there's still a lot more on the table and wondering, did they do all of this over the past week to, again, lead us down another path to now give everyone that big moment of relief whenever Styles does beat Gunther. So everyone's on that high, and all of a sudden you come back again, have Gunther retire Styles whenever he does retire, and you get kind of that more angry, more, sort of visceral ring general who was out to absolutely not just retire AJ Styles, but, just break the man. I think I like that story better, but I'll pick Gunther here, but just keep in mind, I'm kind of hedging my bet on this one a little bit. And there's the next match. It is for the undisputed WWE title. Drew McIntyre defends against Sami Zayn. This is one that it seemed like, again, everything was pointing towards us getting this match. Now you're trying to figure out, what does WWE have up its sleeve again? Because Drew McIntyre has beaten Sami Zayn time and time again. And now Sami has the setup of going to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where he is going to be beloved by the fans. Everyone is going to be behind the idea of Sami Zayn capturing his first world championship in this setting. And yet Drew McIntyre just won the title several weeks ago. And you've got to wonder, does WWE want to swap this title this soon, even if it is for a huge monumental moment like this with Sami Zayn? And I just don't know if I'm there based on what we have seen from this whole situation and the way it played out to finally give Drew McIntyre his big moment. To me, the best scenario, now that you've set this match up, I don't know if I see Sami Zayn going into WrestleMania as the undisputed WWE champion. Yes, he could still lose the title at Elimination Chamber. He could lose it on a SmackDown, whatever. You could give him this one moment here and then he loses it. But for what, right? And you could ask the same question about Drew McIntyre losing it here. What was this all for if the guy was just going to lose the title several weeks later, other than just to get Cody out of the picture? And yet Cody's still going to probably challenge for the championship at WrestleMania no matter what. So it's kind of confusing to me if you do have Sami win here, which I guess could lead to some backlash of why do you even have the match? Well, you could do a 2-for-1 in this scenario. What do I mean by that? Well, you could have Drew McIntyre win, and then you can put Sami in the Rumble. So that way you're getting everything with Sami Zayn here. And we'll get to in a minute how that could complicate the men's Rumble match a little bit when you try to predict a winner for that one. So I will give WWE credit. They have made this a bit more unpredictable in terms of how they're going to do this, which we remember at the time, like we're thinking, okay, if they're going to make that swap from Cody to McIntyre, there has to be something that it leads to down the road, right? And you have to have a setup that gives fans a little bit more interest other than just, all right, they flipped the title and now they're going to flip it right back to Cody. If they were doing that match again, let's say they had another rematch between Cody and Drew in this setting, did it at the Rumble. Well, you're just thinking, okay, well, Cody's just going to win it back. But the way they've set it up, I will give them credit. It's been a lot more, kind of unpredictable as to what they're going to do next. I don't know what they're going to do next with these two necessarily. I think Drew McIntyre, as I've said before, is going to be involved with Cody and Jacob Fatu. That's the way they've set it up on SmackDown. And Sami Zayn really hasn't been involved in that part of the story. But what do they do with Sami after this? Well, we may talk about in a second. I'm going to pick Drew McIntyre to retain the title. I don't think Sami wins here because I think WWE can use this to get Sami into the Rumble. Despite sometimes when you have these World Championship matches, that's not always the case. They don't always put the challenger, the person who loses, back into the Rumble. You could see it here just to get the pop for Zayn and to give him the opportunity to heighten that suspense. Can he get back? Somehow, despite losing this match, you can see Drew McIntyre through nefarious means. He could try to, screw Sami over in this match. McIntyre retains, something like that. He's not going to lose straight up. Sami's not going to lose this match. Simple 1, 2, 3, Claymore, and no kind of outside shenanigans. I think McIntyre will do something here to cheat, whatever he has to do to retain the title, and I think that's the story. Then you can have a reason to put Sami into the Rumble and have him potentially win the thing. Will he do it? We'll find out in a second, but I'm going to pick Drew McIntyre to win in this match to retain the undisputed WWE title. All right, let's get to the women's Royal Rumble match because I think this could be really good. I think there's a lot of kind of interesting possibilities as to how this plays out. The way WWE has built up the tag team division, I think on the women's side, makes this a much more compelling Royal Rumble this year because you do have all the dynamics of these teammates having to work together and have to prioritize an opportunity to go to WrestleMania. And so, how are both of those going to coexist? Whether it's Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, Lash Legend and Nia Jax. You keep going down the line. Asuka and Kairi Sane, Julia and Kiana James. So I think the way they've done that, of course, the ones we're going to get to in a second, I'll mention why we haven't talked about one particular team. But the way you have all these different dynamics in play, I think it's going to make for a pretty fun Women's Royal Rumble match. Yes, you're going to have some surprises. AJ Lee will be back here, I would expect. People have talked about could Paige be back. There are lots of other, I think you'll get some NXT women's superstars here, whether it's a Kendall Gray, someone like that. You're going to see some up-and-coming NXT stars, I think, in this particular match, just as you'll see on the men's side. But the thing I think is the most fascinating here, when you're trying to pick the winner, it comes down to two for me. And it's probably not a big surprise of who that will be. I think your winner is either going to be Liv Morgan or it's going to be the returning Bianca Belair. Because the WrestleMania scenarios for both kind of write themselves here. If Bianca does finally make her return after this long sideline injury that we thought was not going to be anything that kept her out for maybe more than like a month, but she's been out for quite a while. Bianca makes her big return here. She wins the Rumble, and then WWE gives us a clear direction of where we're going. We're getting to that match we've been talking about for a while now. That is Bianca Belair versus Jade Cargill at WrestleMania. I think we're getting to that match no matter what. That's going to happen because I think that's the way you tell the story. How Naomi would have factored into this and all that is kind of fun to think about, but it always seemed like, knowing this time last year that WWE probably, it was a little too early to make that match between the two. You wanted to give Jade a little bit longer, maybe to get acclimated for what they wanted to do with her. Now is the time. You have to get to Bianca versus Jade for the WWE Women's Championship, and I think that's where Bianca winning that title would freshen things up a bit. Nothing against Jade, but her run has been largely forgettable to this point, just because she's not really defending the title, right? Hard to make a title run memorable when you're not defending the title regularly. So I think it's one where Bianca needs to win this thing to get to Jade, and maybe that's it. But I also think Liv needs to win this, because I think that you can still get Bianca to Jade by having her win the Elimination Chamber, which would be kind of fitting based on the story that played out last year at Elimination Chamber. With the whole turn, Naomi being, out, all this stuff, right? So I think that could be somewhat fitting if you had Bianca win that and you set it up that way. But I think Liv here, when you think about the dynamic that is in play with Liv Morgan, Roxanne Perez, and Raquel Rodriguez. Raquel, we know, is going to get the shot at Stephanie Vaquer next week. So the way they're setting that up, to me, I think there's way more interest here in the whole Liv and Roxanne scenario. And knowing how this is all going to play out, everyone, I feel like, is just set on the idea that Liv is the person who's going to eventually make the turn, right? She's going to turn on Roxanne. She's going to turn on Raquel. However she has to do it. She's breaking up the Judgment Day, all this kind of stuff. But I think it's way more effective if you have Roxanne be kind of what Liv was at one point, right? When Liv kind of started to make that turn. I think this is what Roxanne can be. She can be that next Liv Morgan. WWE seems very high on her. There have been reports out there that say the same thing. And why wouldn't they be? Roxanne is excellent. She's fantastic. And she should be seen as one of the people who can win this Rumble. Because I think the winner comes from either Liv, Roxanne, or Bianca. It's one of those three. I just think that the comeback appeal of having Bianca come back and win the Rumble makes sense. But think about it. They also did that with Charlotte last year. Having someone just come off an injury, come back, and, well, they're going to win. That seems a little predictable, right? Because they did it last year with Charlotte. Not to say it was a terrible thing, but we all knew that's kind of what was going to happen. Are they going to do that for a second straight year? Maybe, but I am going to pick Liv Morgan to win the Rumble. I think Liv just kind of is at a point right now in her career where everything is clicking, and I think having her win gives Roxanne more of that sort of, that something that she needs to eventually make the turn that is going to make Roxanne, if that makes sense. It's going to make her WWE career when she is the person maybe that turns on Liv, because I think it works out so much better to do it that way. People want to cheer Liv Morgan. They don't want to boo her, and she's going to get cheered a lot in this match. So I'm picking Liv to win the Royal Rumble. The most fascinating parts will be who's returning, who are the surprises, and I think the Liv and Roxanne dynamic, I think, is one of the biggest parts of this match. All right, and that does lead us to the men's Royal Rumble match. Who will win to go to WrestleMania 42? It's a big question. And we've done some videos here on the channel over the past week discussing the possibilities. Surprise-wise, do I think there are going to be some surprises here? Absolutely, I do. Triple H teased it in all of his kind of media on ESPN, but I think they're going to deliver some surprises here. Chris Jericho is going to be a name that gets thrown out there a lot. We may try to do a video on that. I have some thoughts on Jericho's return this week, likely here on the channel. So there's a lot to discuss here, because I think the men's Rumble match, like I said, the Sami Zayn effect is going to be everything here. Because there was a time, we were talking about this 4 or 5 months ago, I thought Sami was the clear winner to win this Rumble and go on to WrestleMania to win his first World Championship. I still think Sami is a great choice here if they decide to do what I said a minute ago. Maybe you start the show off with that match, Drew McIntyre and Sami Zayn. I tend to think that may be the match that starts the show. Sami loses, he gets put in the Rumble, and now he has an opportunity. You're going to get the best of both ideas here. But if you put him in just to lose, that does feel like something that, is WWE going to do that? Are you going to have Sami basically lose twice here at the Royal Rumble? And if he does, where does he go from here? How does he get back into that picture? Yes, again, he could win the Elimination Chamber. But I think if you're going to tell the Sami Zayn winning the championship story, you have to hit one of those highs here somewhere. Whether if he could just win the title, right? Then it's all done. You're okay. He won the title. Great. But if he doesn't, I almost feel like Sami has to win the Rumble. But I don't know if that's the direction they're going to head in, which does give me more kind of curiosity as to what they're going to do with Sami next. So if we look back after Saturday and Sami wins the Rumble, we should have just said, of course it was obvious. He had to. He didn't have a choice because you can't just, completely deny the people what they want in two different scenarios at the Rumble. First, him losing in the championship match and then losing the opportunity to get back to the championship. So those are things that I think are both on the table. Bron Breakker, we've talked about him. Of course, he's a great choice to win the Rumble. Do the rematch. They've already given Braun the Cody effect where he's sitting there just down, not knowing what to do next after losing to CM Punk. They've given you the visual, the presentation telling you that Bron Breakker is going to eventually be the champion. He can win the Rumble and go face Punk, and boom, there you have it. Or it could be someone like Oba Femi. If you want to do kind of the Jey Uso effect, which in a much different way, but Jey Uso winning the Rumble surprised a lot of people last year. It's Jey Uso and John Cena. Of course we're all going to think John Cena's going to win. No, have Oba Femi come in and just destroy everyone and win the Rumble. If you want to get someone over, that's the way to do it, right? So I think he should be considered one of the top options. Maybe more so than even like an LA Knight or someone like that. I don't think Cody's winning. I think that one I don't think's happening. So those are all realistic possibilities for sure. And that's why I'm really kind of intrigued by this men's match because they have set it up pretty well to where you're going to have all the drama with the Vision. You're going to have the Oba Femi coming in and probably being the star of the match when it comes to eliminating so many people. And I mentioned the Sami Zayn thing. I think that's going to be one of the biggest stories, too, of this entire match. But for me, I'm going to pick someone else to win the 2026 Men's Royal Rumble match because when I think about all the possibilities here and, all the different options for your big matches at WrestleMania, if we already know that we feel like WWE has moved on from one of those matches, and we're trying to figure out the matches that are going to headline, I'll be honest, I don't know what both headliners are going to be at WrestleMania 42. I'm not real sure because I think night one could be yet to be determined. But I think night two, given the options that they have available right now and what maybe they're trying to achieve, I think the night two main event that makes the most sense is only done if Roman Reigns wins the 2026 Men's Royal Rumble match. And we did a video on the channel on Roman this week. I said that we had a big decision to make. Do you give Reigns the Rumble win, or do you have him lose and then figure out what you're going to do with Roman? I think the best of everything here, to get the matches you want at WrestleMania, I think having Roman Reigns versus CM Punk one-on-one, a match they wanted to do seemingly. There was positive momentum towards maybe doing it last year. Didn't happen. They went with a triple threat. And then also doing Seth Rollins versus Bron Breakker. Will Rollins be back at the Rumble? Everything seems to point to him not being back, which means my interest has gone up because of the way they like to pull one over on us when it comes to Seth Rollins. Maybe he is back here. I mean, does he have to do a whole lot other than maybe just get in the Rumble and throw somebody out? I don't know. So who knows? Maybe Rollins makes a shocking return. But either way, I think doing Roman versus Punk and doing Rollins versus Breakker could be the direction they're headed in. I don't know if they're going to get right back to Bron Breakker winning the championship just yet. I think he wins it sometime this year, maybe as soon as after WrestleMania. But I just don't know if, given all the matches that we seem to be setting in motion here, which, like I said earlier, does add in more unpredictability, can't be certain that all these are where WWE's headed. I just think Roman Reigns winning is the visual because it does set up Roman versus Punk. Or, again, you could do something where Punk loses the title in the Elimination Chamber, although I don't think that's going to happen. So I think that's kind of one where you go that route. You could do Punk versus Balor Elimination Chamber, which, based on how they played off this week's Raw, that could be certainly a possibility, I think, to do that match again. They did the first one on Finn's home turf. They could do the next one on Punk's home turf in Chicago. And then Punk wins, and it's Roman versus Punk at WrestleMania. I think that seems to be a really good option. Like I said, I think the runner-up pick here may be Sami Zayn, just because I can see WWE doing that. But I also think Bron Breakker seems like if they want to go all the way with this guy, having him win, face Punk again, is a possibility, but WWE doing the rematch, I think this close together, which I say that knowing that they could also maybe do the rematch with McIntyre and Cody, but yet have Jacob Fatu added into the mix. These are all, again, interesting possibilities, but I want to pick Roman Reigns to win the 2026 Men's Royal Rumble match. I think that gets you to your WrestleMania main event easier than having to go through a lot of hoops elsewhere. And it does give you a big-time match. If you're not doing Cody versus Roman, you need a big-time match to sell as that WrestleMania main event. And I think Roman versus Punk, the history, even though Paul Heyman, not really a factor here, I think that's one they could head in. And that way, if you know Seth Rollins is coming back, you can contain the vision to Seth Rollins to where it's Rollins and Breakker in a one-on-one match. I think that's where you go. Breakker maybe beats Rollins at WrestleMania. Breakker gets to the championship. And maybe that's the dominoes and how they all connect here with this. So there you have it. My picks for the Royal Rumble matches and the other two, what should be excellent matches, I think, for this year's Royal Rumble. You guys let me know what you think. Always appreciate you watching. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button as well. Give me your predictions for all four matches. And, of course, most importantly, who will win the men's and women's Royal Rumble matches.